Welcome, everybody, to the next session in day 3 of the Peralta Online Equity Conference. It is 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and many other times all throughout the world. We're so glad that you've joined us. Today, at this moment, we're going to hear from Eliana Santana Williamson, and her topic is Centering the Learner and Learning in Online Environments. Before we do that, I just want to do a couple housekeeping tips, and then I'll hand over the microphone. So first, if you want to use the captions, the automated captions from Zoom, go down to the toolbar at the bottom of the Zoom window and select the captions button, or sometimes they hide under that button that says more with the 3 dots, and you just select show captions from that menu and you're off and running. Next, these are workshops. Day 3 is meant to be interactive, and so we hope that you'll share your ideas, your inspirations, any comments, and any questions in the chat, so Eliana can respond to those, and I'll be watching the chat, so while she presents, she's got an extra set of eyes. And last but not least, we are recording this, so if you don't want your image, your name, or anything to be captured, then just go ahead and anonymize yourself however you like. Put a picture of your cat, or I see pictures of flowers for one of our participants today, whatever works for you. So with that, Eliana, I would love to have you take over, introduce yourself, and get us started.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Eliana Santana Williamson. I am from the Brazilian Amazon, from the forest. I've been living in the United States for 24 years, 25 years now, I believe. I've been at Southwestern Community College for 24. Bom dia a todos, or good afternoon and good evening too. So let me share my screen. I'd like to welcome you all and say thank you for being here. You could have been somewhere else today, but you chose to be here, and I hope that we can provide you with a space where we can dialogue and have a wonderful conversation about centering the learner and learning in online environments. As you know, my name is Eliana Santana Williamson. I work for Southwestern College, and I am the coordinator of an academy for faculty called ADA, or Advancing Equity Teaching Academy, that was developed by myself and a colleague of mine, Janelle Williams, who is the executive director of the Office of Equity and Engagement, and very supportive of this movement towards equity in our school. And what we're going to be doing today is a workshop. So I have planned an experiential approach. So you will go through some experiences, and then you will share what comes up for you through those experiences. And it will center on, the first experience is going to be about who or what is centered into samples, class samples. We're going to talk about an awareness tool. Then we're going to see 2 examples, one synchronous and one asynchronous. And we're going to end by talking about our productive struggle, where we are and where we see ourselves going when it comes to student-centeredness in classrooms. So let's start with you with a little poll right now. There's 2 ways for you to access the poll. Can you please grab your phone and use the QR code? I will also, if you prefer, to provide you with a link. For me to do that, though, I have to grab the link, so I'm going to have to do something real quick. I'll let you all first use the QR code, if you, for those who prefer to use the QR code. And I place the link in a chat in a minute. Okay. I will be placing the link in the chat in a second. Hold on, I need to view my notes. And here's the link. Oops. And the link is being placed in the chat for everyone. There you go. All right. So the first question, I'm going to show now your answers right here. Let me see what you're answering here. What modalities do you teach? 3 people have answered asynchronous. So let me wait for the answers to come in. Asynchronous, okay. If you need help on how to get to this Mentimeter page, please let me know. There is a link in the chat. There's also the QR code right here for those who would like to use the QR code. It's on the screen as well. All righty, if you're an instructional designer and you support professors teaching all modalities, thank you so much. Yes, I see you. I see you. All right.
And for those who don't have a phone that can do QR codes, I saw that the link was a Zoom link, so I pasted the Menti link in the chat.
There's a Menti link from you to everyone. Oh, I didn't send it to everybody.
It was,
Oh,
I think you had
Oh,
something else
no.
was saved. It was a Zoom link.
Yes, you're right. Sent the wrong link. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Sure, that's why I'm here.
Appreciate that. All right, so we'll probably see more people now using the link. All right, so we have, okay, people are coming in, answering. Asynchronous, mostly asynchronous so far. All right. Okay. Yes, it is allowing you to the one that you use the most, the option that the modality that you teach the most. You should be able to choose more than one. Thank you. And you can answer also in the chat. If you're having difficulty accessing this, you can also put your answer in the chat so we can know more or less the modality that most of you teach. So let's see here. We say asynchronous for 8, okay? Eva is a designer, right? Instructional designer. And Melissa, you could only choose one, but please do enter in the chat if you prefer. Let's go to the second question. Okay, Beth, you're a dean. Thank you. Let's take a look at the second question. What disciplines do you teach, if you teach? And what disciplines do you remember supporting if you're an instructional designer? If you can just enter the word biology, math. There you go. Child development. Psychology, biology. So those are the disciplines represented here in the space today. Earth science, art, graphic design, DE training. Excellent. 11 responses. And you can also enter it in the chat if you're having a difficulty accessing this Mentimeter. Okay. So it's a variety of disciplines represented here today. General education course focused on education. Kevin, thank you. And Beth is a dean. All right. let's go to the next and last one. Take one takeaway you want from this session today. When you're talking about student-centered learning or teaching, what is one thing that you would like to take with you from this session today? So we can ground ourselves on purpose and I can see what your purpose is too. You can share it in the chat, or you can answer your answer in the Mentimeter. New ideas, some new ideas on validating some ideas, how to impact your course design to be focused on equity. Practical ideas for implementation. Same here. I have my email address for those who would like to share some of your ideas with me. If there's not enough time for us to do that, I would love to hear from you and gather ideas from you too. Okay. Practical ideas and strategies. All right, so it seems that we're going towards the practical ideas. Okay. All right, thank you for sharing. How to apply equity pedagogy. And have a sort of a conversation about what it actually means, how we define equity pedagogy, right? Okay, so I am going to stop sharing for a second so I can move something out of the way here and go back to in a second to this. So now let's move on to online synchronous. So we're going to have the first part more focused on online synchronous and the second asynchronous. And what I would like to invite you all to do is, I love this little hermit crab that they're very, very popular in beaches in the Amazon, because, and what I love about them is that, what makes them move, ditch a shell and go and look for another shell is that they grow so big that they become uncomfortable. Because of that discomfort, they leave that shell and they look for a shell that is a little bigger. And that's how I see myself. I'm always unfinished, like Paulo Freire says that we are always unfinished, right? So I'm always unfinished and I'm always like trying to grow, and then I have to leave that shell and go and find another shell. And that's what I'm inviting all of us to do in this space here. We may become a little uncomfortable with some of the conversations we have today, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. So what I would like for us to do now is we're going to be watching videos. It's going to be a sample of two teaching samples. And I would like to invite you all to take a photo or just write down these questions. The questions are, when you watch the video, you're going to watch only 2 minutes of each sample. I usually, because I have more time than 45 minutes, I have over an hour usually, so we watch 7 minutes. But for this space here, we're going to do 2 minutes. In these 2 minutes, whose voice do you hear? Whose culture is relevant? Whose knowledge matters? Who has power and agency? And therefore, who is centered? And we're going to watch 2 samples. Then you will enter your answers in a chat, and we're going to chat a little bit about it. Okay? You ready? All right. So before I show, let me see if I'm sharing my sound. That's important. I was not. I am sharing now. Okay. I will play 2 minutes only. Hold on. Let me check. All right.
Basically, cells make more of themselves. Now, this is not the same concept of evolution, where we would, where they talk about. We'll get into what evolution is and what evolution is not. But this is not the concept that all living things came from single cells in the beginning, so to speak. That is not what cell theory is. Okay, so all cells come from pre-existing cells. That's part of cell theory. But sometimes people, I'm just letting you know, sometimes people confuse and they'll choose a wrong answer, which is that saying that, the first organism on life on this planet was a single cell, or that all life comes from single cell organisms. That is not cell theory. In fact, that's not exactly even what evolution is. Okay? So, one more concept, you could just say that the most basic level of organization, because we're going to talk about organization here in just a second, the most basic level of organization of life is the cell. Okay? So those are just a couple of different ways of looking at how to describe cell theory, but they all encompass the same thing. All living things are made of cells. All cells come from pre-existing cells. It's the most basic unit of life. All living things are made of cells. And that's why a rock is not a living organism, because it's not made of cells. That's why there's this debate in viruses, because viruses is not included in cell theory. Viruses are not self-contained structures that we call cells. So we're going to look at the organization of a cell a little bit later on in chapter 3, I believe, where we look at how a cell...
Okay, so this is the first sample, and I would like to invite you to answer these questions. And you can put it in the chat. Whose voice is heard? Whose culture is relevant? Whose knowledge matters? Who has power and agency? Therefore, who is centered? Can you enter your answer in the chat of the first video? Mhm. Okay. Okay. Kevin, teacher's voice, dominant Eurocentric knowledge tradition, instructor, the teacher. We seem to be all in agreement that the answer is one word, instructor or the teacher or the presenter. Okay, it's about content. So what is centered? Content. Thank you, Melissa. Whose voice is heard? The teachers, right? Whose knowledge matters? I mean, the instructor, the presenter. All right. Let's take a look at a second video.
Let's start out with something fun, but has to do with the brain. So I wanted to do a breakout session, but I wanted it to be something that relates to the nervous system, okay? So we are going to be doing a breakout session that is going to be about the zombie apocalypse. My first question is, can someone tell me what the zombie apocalypse is? Ulysses, tell me. You look so interested. You're like, I want to say it, but I just don't know.
Like the dead coming back to life type of thing, but not to life. But then there's like other zombies now that they just like kind of like want to kill you, like very like animal instinct type of thing.
So dead coming to life, but not alive, animalistic, and they want to kill you. Virtual thumbs up if you pretty much covered all of that. Yeah, okay, they approve. Anyone like to add anything else? Or are we good? Zombie apocalypse, got it. What's the apocalypse portion of it? Who can hit me with that?
I guess it's because it becomes so contagious that it affects like everyone so fast and like the rapid, like
right. So rapid spread, and then Chanel, what were you gonna say?
Oh, sorry. I just meant like, isn't like apocalypse meaning like world ending?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a situation where the zombies are so crazy that the world is ending, right? Or at least human world. But that's all we care about, right? Homo sapien, wise one. So the question for this breakout session is, in the zombie apocalypse, you can only bring 5 things. What are they? So I've made the groups a little bit smaller. It's 10 minutes so that you guys can actually talk to each other about what you would get and why. And then maybe dive into like some strategy that you would take if you have some extra time. So I want to hear about what happened for your zombie apocalypse. Like, what are the few things?
So for group 3, we top 2. I'm going to go with medical supplies and water.
Ooh, good. Yes.
I think I want to go next.
Go for it.
Flashlight and tourniquet.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one, right? Because if they bite you, right? We all know Walking Dead. Spoiler alert, right? That's how they're able to save the leg, right? It's an earlier on spoiler alert.
Oh,
Okay, so can you please place in the chat the answer to these questions? Whose voice did you hear? Whose culture was relevant? Whose knowledge mattered? Who had power and agency? Who was centered? The students participated fully. Hi, Elisa. The students participated. They were able to take the lead. Students' knowledge mattered. This is a professor that we have at Southwestern College, a rock star called Trishana Norquist. Dr. Trishana Norquist is very well known for her student-centered approach to biology. This is a long class. We don't have a chance to watch the whole class, which is amazing, but just a little sample of it. Everyone in the room, the students, the students, the instructor, everybody talks. Her energy is amazing, Melissa. Okay. And it was interesting. How did you notice about culture? She's teaching students are very young. So she talks about a show that was very common for that age group, right? She was talking about also a topic that was very common. She was talking about a show that is, what is the name of the show she mentioned? Yeah, the zombie apocalypse. She connects, right? The Walking Dead. That's right, The Walking Dead. So she's really bringing her the students' culture, what their lived experience into the room, as she's going to start talking about the frontal lobe and how it evolves with time. And she starts by doing this warm-up activity and contextualizing it and inviting everybody in. So what I wanted to share in the space here is what a student-centered and teacher-centered class looks like. Even if it's an online, we thought here an example of a synchronous live session. So I would like to just see if you would like to, for a minute or two, unmute yourselves and share a thought. What is coming up for you right now in terms of, you've seen these 2 videos, in terms of student-centered learning, anything you'd like to share in the space, or any reflection you want to write for yourself that you would like to take a look at later. How to replicate this approach in an asynchronous class. I was just thinking about it, Kevin. So how do we do that? How do we center the learner and learning and create an environment that is bringing in their culture, but in an asynchronous environment? That's a great question. A wonderful conversation to be had, right? Anybody else wants to share any thoughts?
Is it okay to chime in?
Sure.
And I suggest, I think for the asynchronous course or in asynchronous courses, a similar activity could be done in a discussion, either like a Canvas discussion or whichever LMS you're using, or using a video tool like Flip or Studio, where they can still have the same type of discoveries and conversations, but just not in real time. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if anybody has ever done a similar activity. I'd be curious to know how you accomplish that.
There's so many tools nowadays online, right, to center the learner and learning. I am going to share with you an example of an asynchronous example of doing so. But you're right, Eva, there's so many. So if you want to enter in the chat a tool that you use to hear students' voices, to hear students' culture coming through, what are some of the tools that you use? If you can enter in the chat. I have heard some of our colleagues telling me that students seem to not react so well to discussion boards anymore. Some of my colleagues are tired of discussion boards. Honestly, I am too. So what would be other tools besides discussion boards that you could use in your classes? They're asynchronous.
In the math classes I teach, students don't feel qualified to peer review each other's work. They often say, I don't know enough of this math to help with that. And so it's an area where I'm particularly stumped because I'd love to have the student voice more, like in that second vibrant dynamic example. If I were in that class, I know I would be enjoying that second version a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So VoiceThread, right? VoiceThread is one example of a tool that you can use. A Google Doc, that is, students are sharing their ideas also asynchronously. What other tools that you have used to center the learner and learning in your asynchronous classes? Padlet. Mm-hmm. Mentimeter. Have you used the Mentimeter, the one that I used earlier today? Mentimeter. Okay. Okay. There's some very good, interesting tools being shared now in chat. Hypothesis. I haven't used Hypothesis. Kevin, what is exactly Hypothesis?
It's called a social annotation tool where you can upload documents and students can post questions or comments or reactions to different passages. The instructor can set it up in advance so that it's preloaded with those prompts. Often we give students numbers of pages to read, but we don't give them guidance about what we want them to do or what they should take away from it. So the Hypothesis creates a more interactive experience with reviewing content that many people consider flat. But I like it also because students can upload photos and videos, and so they can, like some prompts that I've seen instructors use is like, what photos does capture the way this makes you feel, or so it just makes it to the way the person in the video did with getting it to the younger students in the room with cultural references. Then they can go find their own cultural references.
That's wonderful. And I have also saw Hypothesis, Digo, Perusal, am I pronounced that correctly? Harmonize, Twine. So there's several tools in the chat. If you all want to take a look at them later, that would be great to see how we can center the learner and learning. Jamboard, but it's going to be discontinued. I love Jamboard too. Very sad. I agree, Chrissy. All right, so let's move on to, I want to share with you all a tool, and this is more of a pedagogical self-awareness thing for the instructor who teaches synchronous classes. And I would like to invite you all to think about how we can do that asynchronously. And I'm going to show an example of a class that does a lot of the student engagement, asynchronous student engagement. But this is a question for you. Have you ever done an engagement analysis? Just use the chat. You don't have to use the QR code. Have we ever done an engagement analysis? Your question, your answer could be yes, no, or what is an engagement analysis? Those are your three options, okay? Yes, no, or what is an engagement analysis? Okay. All right. So for those who say Yes. Have you done an engagement analysis in a synchronous class or asynchronous class? A synchronous class. Anybody would like to show me your thumbs? If you say, I've never done an engagement analysis, just show me your thumbs up. Say, I've never done it. I know that it's strange. Thumbs up for never done it. But yeah, I want to have an idea using Echo 360. Okay. Michelle, would you like to share what Echo 360 is?
Sure. Echo 360 is a video platform, very, very expensive, unfortunately, but it comes with an analysis tool of time on screen, and the AI can determine when students are looking away or stop the video and restart. So it's really interesting in analytics.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Haven't done one? All right. So for those who are wondering what I mean by an engagement analysis, so everybody can, we can define it differently. But the way I have been doing with my colleagues at Southwestern College is that we record a session. So for example, you have your Zoom session. So you record your Zoom session like Trishana did. And then you will have take a screenshot so you know where your students. Then you will analyze 20-minute sample, a 30-minute sample, the entire class. You will tally and just count, really tally whenever a student says something, asks a question, makes a comment, you will tally that on that square where the student is, you tally. And at the end, you can look at your engagement, student engagement. I'm talking about like when students participate, and you can actually see a picture of who's participating, who's not, and think about what you can do within your sphere of influence to try to make sure that everybody is engaging. For example, let me give you an example. This is something that Trishana could, this is not what Trishana did. This is me just trying to give an example, right? So we can count the total number of students, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's about 20 students over here. Let's see that this student talked all these times, this student didn't, right? These that have nothing here, we didn't talk. And then those are the times that those other students talked. So if you look at your engagement analysis, what do you see? For example, if you look at this one, which is fictitious, right? What do you see? They're out of 20 students. Okay, all cameras are on. All right. I don't think, are all of them on? I think 2 of them are not. Maybe down here on the bottom of the screen, but I'm not sure. Uneven participation, only a few participating, exactly. About 13 people participated. We don't see everything because some students could be talking in the breakout rooms. This here was not the breakout room. This is when it's a teacher talking time, part of the lesson. Same thing happens in an in-person classroom, in any classroom, right? So just to give you an example of a seating chart, for instance. There is a website that has seating charts. So if you teach in person or if you teach online and you prefer to use the seating chart, you can do that. And for equity purposes, for instance, if you want to look at gender, if you want to look at ethnicity or age or all of them, you can enter your perceived, because your perception, right? We don't know exactly what ethnic group this student is, but your perception of gender and ethnicity here, and then enter and tally that. There's very interesting things that can come out of this. So if you look at this engagement analysis, what do you see?
It's mainly
This was
just two people who are participating the most.
right.
I'm not
Exactly.
sure what the LFY and WFY mean though.
Okay, this particular instructor, W is women, a woman, sorry, W is white, F is female, Y is young. So A is Asian, L is Latino. So sometimes you can see patterns in your own classroom that shows a certain cultures may not be participating as much. We're thinking about what kind of materials am I using, right? Am I representing those cultures in my classroom? So that kind of, this is what I call critical engagement analysis. It goes a little bit beyond only saying, how much talking there is, but who is actually participating and who is not. And what I can do within my sphere of influence to help them. And then we have to think about talking with them, looking at our materials, looking at what we're asking students to do, and going deeper into that thinking of inclusion and diversity. Are my materials diverse enough? Are they representative of these cultures that I have in my classroom, right? And that can be done in online classes and as well as in-person classes. And it's one of the tools that we use in our academy to help faculty look at their engagement through a critical lens. And I would love to hear your thoughts about how to do that in an asynchronous environment, because that's been our struggle right now in the academies. How do we check engagement in an asynchronous environment? And I would like to share it with you, because we are running out of time. We'd like to share with you an example of centering the learner and learning in an asynchronous environment. But before we do that, I would like to share a strategy, right? One of the strategies that we use is the chunk and chew. That's very common. It's something that you can see online. Is one of I'm from a very different culture, right? I come from an oral culture. I don't come from a written culture. So to share, I'm going to share something with you. For me, a lot of text and a lot of talk and for longer periods of time can be quite difficult for me to process. And then in neuroscience, we also see that it's very difficult for people to process long volumes of information at a time. And one of the things that we recommend in order to and that I have been doing to center the learner and learning is to look at the chunks of information that we give and reduce those chunks and have students do things so they can chew, right? So they can choose. I'm going to do a quick exercise, a real quick exercise with you all, just an experience with you all. Let's see how you feel about it. Let's do this. I will play a video, just like a little over a minute. And in this video, I will play it once. I'm not going to pause it. Write down the names of the names that you hear, of the people here. Are you ready? A piece of paper, pen or pencil, or your phone, and let's do that.
Let me introduce to you this family. This is Tracy, Steve, Linda, Chelsea, Matt, Alicia, Teresa, Anthony, Ian, Raquel, Jeff, London, and Danny.
Okay. So let's take a look at this image. Now, just for yourself, you don't have to enter in the chat right now. How many names do you remember? Look at the faces and see if you can name them, and then count how many you can name. Shirley, you have an incredible memory. You wrote down 13, but you can't pair them, Elisa. Okay. Shirley, could you pair them all 13? Or could you wrote down the names, but you don't know who is who? No? Okay. All right. So you were a very good note taker, right? You wrote down all those names very quickly, but you are having a hard time saying who is who. Okay. All right. So this is the content being given at once, right? Without chunking. Anybody can say, yes, I can name all of them and I know their faces. I can just point at their faces and name them. Anybody can say yes. Or you could say no, just put yes or no in the chat. Let's see how many of you say yes, how many of you say no. Okay. For me too, very fast and fast, very overwhelming. Okay. No, all righty. Okay. So let's do another activity now. The same video, but this time the video is going to be chunked and I'm going to have you do some activities to chew the content. Let's see how it goes for you. Ready?
Hi everyone. Now I would like to introduce this family to you. The oldest ones in the family are two sisters. This is Tracy and this is Linda. Tracy is married to Steve. Linda's husband died a long time ago. She basically raised her daughter by herself. So Tracy and Linda, what is interesting about them, each one of them had one daughter. So Tracy had Chelsea and Linda had Raquel. So two sisters had two daughters. Isn't that interesting?
Can you answer these questions? Okay. Yes, you can answer 4 out of 5. Yes, it's a pass. All right. It's much more memorable. Okay. So I'm going to play a little bit. I will continue playing the video.
Well, also Chelsea, growing up, she always wanted to have siblings. She felt lonely. She felt that a family should be a big family, and she decided that she wanted to have a big family. So she had 5 kids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all her kids. This one is the oldest one. It's Matt. Matt is in high school now. Alicia in middle school right now. Teresa, who is still in elementary school. And it's funny because Teresa loves video games more than her big brother. Then Anthony, elementary school too, and Ian, who is 6 years old.
Let's try to answer these questions. So can you answer those questions? Can you remember them? All right, it's much more memorable. What has helped you? What has helped you remember? What has made those names more memorable to you all? And what could have been done differently? Stories, contextualizing it. All right. Slower, added context. Typed out names, not just verbal. Okay, very good. Authentic stories that made us connect probably to those people as family members. Making it more personable. Background info. Arrows typed. I think I'm running out of time. How am I doing in terms of time, Kevin?
So we do have maybe a few more minutes. We probably will try to stop 10 minutes before the end of the hour.
All righty. Making it more personable. Okay. So what I would like to share with you all is how chunking things in small chunks and providing people with opportunities to connect, contextualize things, to process things, right, helps learning so much. That is in any environment, that being synchronous or asynchronous. So, for example, I'd like to share with you an asynchronous example of an asynchronous class where this is done. So things are done in small chunks, everything fits on one page, and the students are given opportunities to chew, and their learning is centered by using chunk and chew. Since I have only a few minutes, I was going to give you the link to this page, which I can still do. You can look at it later. Let me put in the chat. This is just an idea I've had. I would love to hear your ideas on how you have centered your students, the learner and learning in your asynchronous class. But one model is by doing a lot of chunking and chewing. So for example, this is just one module. This is 1/3 of a module in our Advancing Equity Teaching Academy, where faculty are having this conversation about centering the learner and learning through chunk and chewing. And if, as you see, the pages are chunked, so the content is chunked here. So first they have the welcome page, then they go to the next page. I have to move this from here. They go to the next page. The next page is also a short, it's the activity that we just did. It's very experiential. They go through this experience, and then they are asked to share on a Padlet which experience, which video helped them remember better their names and which didn't. So they share. So here are them processing information, right? So then they will go to the next page, and then it's another chunk. And in this chunk, they have this video about chunking and chewing. Right after they watch this video, they process information by reading. They're going to have a reading to do on chunking and chew, but it's a short reading. It's not a whole chapter. After that reading, they do a little quiz where they have to think about all this, what they have experienced, what they've read, and all the things they've done in those pages, and then they answer these questions, right? So they're interacting constantly with this small chunks that they have, and in different ways. And the chunks are given through reading, through video, and through other means. So then they have a video. The video is about centering the learner and learning in this classroom, having them engage. And they go short pages, and they go to the next page, and the next page is about teacher talking time. And it's going to also introduce a project that they will do to analyze their engagement in their classes, and so forth, so on and so forth. So there's several ways. If you look at the module, I couldn't use quiz. I couldn't do a quiz or the chat, the discussion board, because you would not be able to, since it's a public page, you would not be able to go from a page to another. But you can see here how there's several chunks. The chunks are much, much shorter. And then between chunks, the learner processes information and engages with content and with others. And that was the idea that I had, center the learner and learning in asynchronous environments. But I would love to hear your ideas on how you have been doing this. And I will also place in the chat my email. I would love to hear from you. And open your mics, please. And that's all for today. I think that it's already 12:49, right, Kevin?
That is correct.
Planned a little bit longer, but I'm centering on the learner and learning rather than on us learning together rather than on content.
Nice. Obrigado.
De nada.
So as we make the transition to the next presentation, let's first take a moment and thank Eliana for such a great session. I really love how you modeled as well as gave us opportunities to discuss our own practices. So truly appreciate that. And we can continue the comments and the questions in the chat as we get our next Speakers ready to go. So I'm going to stop the recording.